The rain had stopped hours ago, but the sky still hung heavy with the kind of gray that makes the world feel quieter, slower, almost as if it, too, is holding its breath. Emma stood by the hospital window, her reflection faint against the glass, her fingers trembling as she clutched the letter she never sent. It was the letter she'd written to James 2 years ago, before she left town, before she broke everything that could have been. She had promised herself she'd never return, that she'd move on, forget him, and forget the pain of leaving behind the only man who ever looked at her like she wasn't broken. But now here she was, standing in the same hospital where his father was taking his final breaths, haunted by every memory she tried to bury. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that love doesn't always fade. Sometimes it just waits for us to find our way back. Emma hadn't planned on coming back to Oak Ridge. It was a small town full of whispers and memories that clung too tightly. But when she saw the post about Mr. Hartman's condition, the man who used to fix her old bicycle when she was a little girl, the man who once called her daughter, her heart wouldn't let her stay away. She told herself she was here just to pay her respects. Just one night, just one goodbye. Nothing more. But as she walked through the sterile white hallways, every step brought her closer to a past she wasn't ready to face. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint scent of coffee and old grief. Nurses moved quietly, machines beeped rhythmically, and the air seemed to hum with memories. And then, at the end of the corridor, she saw him, James Hartman, the man she once promised forever to. He was sitting beside his father's hospital bed, his head bowed, his dark hair now streaked with gray she didn't remember. He wasn't the same man she left behind. His shoulders seemed heavier, his expression quieter. He looked like a man who had loved deeply, lost too much, and learned to live with the ache. Emma froze in the doorway. For a moment she thought about turning back, pretending she was never there. But before she could move, James looked up. Their eyes met, and in that second, every wall she had built came crashing down. She expected anger, bitterness, maybe even indifference. But what she saw instead was surprise, and something that looked too much like heartbreak. "Emma!" His voice was low, rough, like he hadn't spoken her name in years but never stopped remembering it. She wanted to answer, but the lump in her throat made it impossible. She stepped closer, hesitating. Mr. Hartman lay still, his breathing shallow, his frail hand resting on the blanket. The man who once told her, "Family isn't always who you're born to. It's who shows up when you need them most," now looked small, fragile, fading. Emma reached out, gently brushing her fingers against his hand. "Hi, Dad," she whispered, the word catching in her throat. James looked away, but she saw the tears he quickly wiped before they fell. The silence between them was suffocating. It was filled with everything unsaid, the love that never had closure, the apologies that came too late, the pain of leaving without goodbye. When the doctor came in to check on Mr. Hartman, Emma stepped out into the hallway, needing air. Her heart pounded like it was trying to remind her she was still alive, still feeling. She leaned against the wall, closing her eyes when she heard a small voice behind her. "Are you Miss Emma?" She turned to see a little boy, maybe 6 or 7, standing with a paper airplane in his hand. He had James's deep brown eyes and a curious half-smile. "Yes," she said softly, kneeling down. "Who are you, sweetheart?" "I'm Noah. My daddy told me about you." He said it so innocently, so matter-of-factly, that she forgot to breathe. "He said you were the girl who made him believe in happy endings." Emma's throat tightened. She smiled weakly. "Did he now?" "Uh-huh. He said he messed it up, but Grandpa said some stories aren't over yet." Before she could respond, James appeared at the end of the hall, looking at them both. He walked closer, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. "Noah, buddy, why don't you go get your coloring book from the waiting room?" "Okay, Daddy." The boy ran off, leaving a quiet space filled with memories and unshed tears. James sighed. "You weren't supposed to come back," he said quietly. "I know," Emma whispered, "but I had to." He nodded, his jaw tightening. "He'll be happy you did." They stood there in silence, The years between them heavy but not impossible. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then James said something she didn't expect. He used to ask about you. Every birthday, every Christmas, he said he knew you'd come back someday. Emma's eyes stung. I should have come sooner. James looked at her then, really looked at her. You left because you thought you were doing the right thing. I get it now. She shook her head. No, I left because I was scared. I thought love like ours couldn't survive the things I carried. I didn't want to break you. He smiled faintly. You didn't. You just left me waiting. The words hit harder than she expected. That night, Emma stayed by Mr. Hartman's side. James and Noah fell asleep on the couch in the corner, their heads resting together. She watched them in the dim hospital light, the boy's small hand holding his father's, the same way James once held hers. She thought about how life kept moving, even when love stayed stuck in one moment. In the quiet, she whispered the words she never said. I'm sorry, Dad, for leaving, for breaking him, for forgetting how much home I had here. The old man didn't stir, but a faint smile seemed to cross his lips. Maybe it was just the light. Or maybe he heard her. By morning he was gone, peacefully, quietly, the way good souls often leave. The funeral was small, intimate, under the oak tree in the churchyard, where the hearts had always been laid to rest. The air smelled of rain and earth and goodbye. Emma stood beside James and Noah, her heart heavy yet strangely calm. She had expected this to be an ending, but instead it felt like the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. After the crowd left, James stayed behind, staring at the headstone. Emma stood beside him, unsure what to say, but it was Noah who broke the silence, his small hand slipping into hers. Grandpa said you'd come back, he said softly. Emma knelt down, tears finally spilling over. He did? Yeah, Noah smiled. He said Daddy waited for you, even when you didn't come back. He said love like that doesn't stop. It just waits. Emma's breath caught. She turned to James, whose eyes glistened in the fading light. And for the first time in years, she didn't look away. They talked for hours that evening, about what happened, what broke them, and what still remained. James told her about his late wife, how she passed away when Noah was just a baby, about how he never thought he'd love again, and yet somehow, part of him never stopped loving her. Emma told him about the years she spent running from herself, the therapy, the rebuilding, the trying to forgive her past. She told him she never stopped thinking of him, even when she pretended she did. As the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky in gold and purple, James reached for her hand. It wasn't a grand gesture, just simple, quiet, honest. Maybe, he said softly, we could start over. Not as what we were, but as who we've become. Emma smiled through her tears. I'd like that. In that moment, it wasn't about fixing the past, it was about choosing the present, about understanding that love doesn't always need to be perfect. Sometimes it just needs to survive long enough to be found again. Weeks passed. Emma stayed in Oak Ridge, helping Noah with school projects, cooking dinners with James, slowly weaving herself back into a life that once felt lost. There were awkward moments, quiet nights, and memories that still hurt. But there was also laughter again. There was warmth in the home, and peace where there once was regret. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching Noah chase fireflies, James turned to her and said, "He waited for you." Emma frowned softly. "Who did?" "My dad," he said. "The night before he passed, he told me, 'Don't let her go again, son. She'll come back. She always does.'" Emma's heart broke and healed all at once. She looked up at the stars, whispering, "Thank you, Dad," and smiled through her tears. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share, because somewhere, someone is waiting for a second chance too. And if you believe that love can find its way back, no matter how much time has passed, subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Before you go, comment below. I believe love always finds its way back, because sometimes it really does.